everything is going to continue as is for the next several months. Ukraine and Russia will both launch offensives. Both sides will have gains and losses. And over the course of the next 6 months or so, we're going to see something that looks like a military stalemate emerge. Neither Russia nor Ukraine will generate the combat capability to achieve victory. Ukraine talks about the full expulsion of Russian troops from their territory, including all of Donbass and Crimea. I think that's unlikely. We then, when military stalemate sets in, have an opportunity for a diplomatic effort to get a truce and a territorial settlement. I would begin to prepare the ground for that diplomatic settlement sooner rather than later, in the sense that, Biden prepared aid to Ukraine before the fighting started. I think it makes sense to think through the dimensions of the diplomatic endgame before the fighting stops. Do I think that China has a role to play here and that there will be some kind of US-China condominium? Absolutely not. The US relationship with China is terrible. I don't know how many of you were at the Munich Security Conference over the weekend, but I was struck by the strident nature of the Chinese foreign minister's address. And then apparently, we were all waiting around to see whether Blinken would meet with Wang Yi. They did meet. And as far as we can tell, they just shouted at each other. So if anything, I think the Chinese are going to provide more support to Russia. If there is a kind of diplomatic breakthrough, it's going to require a consensus within NATO, between NATO and Kyiv, and ultimately with the Russians. I see this as largely a conversation between the West and Russia. Russia sees this as a war with the West. And so I do think that if there is going to be some kind of breakthrough, China will not be a key player. To the degree that there is an important China dimension here, I think it comes from leverage. Who has leverage over Putin? It's Xi Jinping. Will he be willing to exercise that leverage and put pressure on Putin and tell him to stop this war? I have my doubts.